Noah has a question for Forever DMs. How much planning do you do with world building? Like, do you do a history of your world or just build organically? I don't have a history like the way I think people talk about having a history. Um, yeah, I don't really do that. I have a history that's relevant to the game. I don't have a history that's irrelevant. Um, and I guess that's a matter of taste, but just like so many things, I really value keeping the game flexible. And if I fully define everything, then there's no room to sort of improvise. Like I view everything as sort of fungible until it's at the table, until it shows up at the table, and then it's sort of true. So if I was to, it feels like anything that I write up that is not relevant to what's going on in the campaign, if I'm just like, yep, and then 100 years ago was this, and 1,000 years ago, and 10,000 years ago was this, it's like, I feel like I'm taking away options from myself and not providing them. This way, you know, it's not always the case, but sometimes it's like if the players are like, oh, were there ever dwarves living in those mountains? Or that's a really lame example, but I don't have to be like, no. I could be like, well, it's possible. And maybe that finds its way in as long as it is collaborative and contributes to the world that exists. Anything is possible. But I'm also probably not a big kind of like world building DM. You have a setting we've used for the last year or so, and I can't tell you about the history of the other counties or in the world. I'm sure that my PCs want that. So the problem that I have with it, and the reason that I don't spend much time on it, is that I think the history of a world is only as good as how much it actually presents itself at the table. Like because I value sort of flexibility in the game, I'll have a general arc in mind, but I mostly still plan one session at a time, and a whole bunch of history that predates the players. My question is always, how does that show up at the table? Because I'm certain they don't want a history lecture. I'm certain they don't want to read an information dump. If it's relevant to the thing that we're doing, then okay, like then I'll flesh that out. But if it's just background information, like that doesn't seem all that interesting. I'm curious though, when you say that you feel like the PCs want that, here's how I escape some of this. Or how I dodge it, or maybe it can be useful. And but I'm curious. Like, do you get the sense that your party wants you to provide like a document or something like that? Because what I try to encourage my players to do is definitely find out about the world, but the way that you'll find out about the world is by, as your character, asking NPCs in the world about the world. Like, interrogate the world from within. Don't ask me for, you know, truth. Don't ask me for, yeah, I guess like a history doc or something like that. Really doesn't come up, but I mean, maybe it depends what different player groups are interested in. It's an interesting one. I'm trying to imagine a situation where my party would be like wanting that. I don't know, guys. Maybe my world's boring, and so they're not interested. Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. Like I would I would not want to provide answers via a doc, uh, anything written down, a timeline necessarily. But if I could get into the mindset of a character in the world, like an NPC, and say, okay, well, here's a bard character and their song list, like they're like a song historian. And so everywhere that they go, they've got basically like a set list. And if you read down their set list, it's like, oh, is this in order? This looks like from like the origin of the world to like now, and there are all these sort of like songs that are sort of hinting at these different things, and they're like, can we, let's have this bard sing these songs. Like to me, that's interesting, right? But that's because it's an interpretation of the world's events from this character or from these series of characters, not from me. Um, that I think that gives it more, that gives it life, that makes it more interesting. Yeah, Colville's lore delivery system. I like that. Billy Goat. I just want to make sure that at no point do players get the idea that it's true. That maybe sounds weird. I think that for anything that the dungeon master says is going to be revered more than I think it should be, because it doesn't feel true to know with certainty, if that makes sense. Um, and that's what we have the ability to do, and that's why sometimes the stuff we say is so dangerous. Um, there you go, Gibson. Uh, but like if you're asking about, if the players want to know about the history of a a kingdom, it's like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting because if you talk to sort of the king's historian, or if you find some sort of document or some tablets or something like that, the victors write a different history than maybe the people who were conquered, and the world lore filtered through a perspective, to me, is a lot more interesting than if I said this is true. I think anytime I feel like I'm finding myself saying this is true, I feel like it like sucks all of the life out of it. Yeah, like that would almost be interesting. I didn't really care about like the idea of pantheons until I watched Matt Colville's video about kind of where the gods come from, that gods follow culture and it's not the other way around. Um, and I realized that, in every region of my world, the creation god story is being kind of retold. So if I have this list of gods over here, it might have a different set of names and a different interpretation or a different story, that characters are all remixed into this different thing. And once I realized that the pantheon was just sort of kind of a fractal representation of these different areas and groups of people, it's instantly more interesting. Telling the story of the gods in a sense where like this is true, I'm like, ugh. Not as interesting. So yeah, I agree. No, I think the different perspectives is a cool way to look at it. Unreliable narrator. That's Gibson, as always, coming in and saying in like a handful of words what I've been floundering at for a while.